Hey guys, today I'll be taking a look at those two ultra important Senate races in the state of Georgia, taking a look at the new updated numbers for everything and just updating you guys on what's happening because right now Democrats are, winning in terms of the early vote. There's no doubt about that. It's really just about how many Republicans can turn out for the Republican candidates and how many of them turn out. If a lot of, black voters turn out, compared to white voters typically, then I think that Democrats have this race in the bag. It's really just about how many people turn out and, what kinds of demographics they are from, because really the white vote is split pretty evenly, but in favor of the Republicans, but the black vote is pretty much 9 in 10 vote for the Democratic Party. So before we go any further, make sure you join my Discord server if you have not. The link to which is at the very top of the description below. So make sure you join that if you haven't. So taking a look at the numbers between Ossoff and Perdue and Warnock and Loeffler, you have Jon Ossoff who leads by 0.9% and Raphael Warnock who is up by a margin of 1.8%. So Ossoff at 48.5%, Warnock at 49.2%. Now the polls, they were not the best for the 2020 election. Pollsters just got a lot of those demographics wrong. They have to predict the turnout for those demographics, and they were just completely off in 2020, even worse than they were in 2016. And taking a look at the numbers between Joe Biden and Donald Trump, on November 3rd, you see that Joe Biden was leading by 1.2%. He was at 48.5% to Donald Trump's 47.4%. So Joe Biden at 48.5%, he ended up winning 49.5%. Donald Trump 49.26%. So Trump did do a little bit better with those undecided voters that were not part of the 48.5 and 47.4%, but Joe Biden still ended up winning the state. Now, he did not win 50%. He won less votes than David Perdue, but the race was just really, really close. And I think that Democrats definitely have a very good chance of flipping those two seats, as right now, Ossoff is up by 0.9% and Warnock by 1.8%. So I'm not saying, trust the polls. These polls, there's barely been that many. And I'm not saying that these polls mean that Ossoff and Warnock are just going to win. I'm just saying that, these numbers, they are not looking that bad compared to the numbers that Joe Biden was seeing. And, the polls were off by less than 1% in the state of Georgia. And polling average of 1.2%, ending up going to 0.25% really is not that bad. And with Raphael Warnock at 49.2%, that is pretty positive because he only has to win 0.8% of that undecided vote if these polls are really that accurate. And I think that these polls, they are much more accurate than the polls that we saw in other states, and the main reason for this is that we have the demographics. They know who voted, the percentage of voters that voted, they know who voted. And so I think that they're going to get, where the voters are going to come from a lot better in this race because, that they, those people just voted a little bit over a month ago, 2 months ago, so they know who already voted. So I think that is going to increase the accountability of these polls, but we'll see. Really right now, it's all about the early voting numbers. As you can see, Perdue won by 1.8%. He won by less than 100,000 votes. Joe Biden, on the other hand, won by around 12,000 votes. So Biden at 2.473 million, while David Perdue won at 2.462. So Joe Biden actually won more votes than David Perdue, but Perdue had a larger percentage of the vote share at 49.7 to Joe Biden's 49.5. So I don't also want to take a look at the approval rating of Donald Trump in the state of Georgia because something that these two senators are doing, especially Kelly Loeffler, is she's portraying herself as very, very pro-Trump. She said she was pro-Trump when she was appointed by Brian Kemp, the governor of Georgia. So she has really been running her campaign, trying to get as close to Trump as she could, closer than David Perdue. They both do support Trump on, very, very many issues, but Trump is not popular in the state of Georgia. And you saw this. Joe Biden won the state of Georgia, so Trump lost this state. And I'm just really not sure as whether or not trying to get yourself as close to Trump as possible is really going to be the best strategy. I think that Kelly Loeffler is not going to win her race. I really just don't. Between Ossoff and Perdue, I think that's a lot more of a pure toss-up. But right now, I don't think Kelly Loeffler is going to win. This is not my prediction. I'll make a prediction towards the end. But right now, I don't think that Kelly Loeffler stands that good of a chance at this point in time. But with the approval rating for Donald Trump, his approval rating is not good. I mean, typically after an incumbent loses an election, you saw this with George H.W. Bush, you saw this with Bill Clinton leaving office, even George W. Bush, when he left office, his approval rating went up, especially Barack Obama as well. With almost every single president, when they leave office, their approval rating goes up, but not for Donald Trump, because Donald Trump has yet to concede the election, and you see his numbers are actually going down. This is the 4-year graph. This is all 4 years. And you see that Trump's approval right now, his net approval, is at one of the worst in his entire presidency at -14. The only time he was at a lower point was, very, very early on in 2017. He was at -16. It did increase by quite a bit, but right now he is at a pretty particularly low point, and Donald Trump is not approved of in this country. If you take a look at this chart right here, or this map, I guess, for the entire United States, showing the approval rating of Donald Trump in each and every state, you see that Donald Trump is not popular in Georgia. His net approval in this state is -7%. Compare that to a state like South Carolina, +3 in favor of the president, or Alabama, +20. Now, he is more popular here than he is in a state like Florida, or a state like North Carolina, but it's very, very close, and polls are always off by a little bit. So Trump is not popular in Georgia. So, trying to get yourself as close to him as possible, I'm really not too sure, if that's really the best idea. If you're trying to get yourself closer and closer to an unpopular president that is leaving office very, very soon. So the betting odds between Kelly Loeffler and Raphael Warnock. Warnock has continued to increase his chances. He is now at 57 cents per share. He is almost reaching the numbers that Kelly Loeffler had. Kelly Loeffler was at 57 cents a share at one point in time, and I think that these are very, very positive numbers for the Reverend. I think that 57.45, these are numbers that I never expected. I never expected Raphael Warnock to be leading in the betting odds against Kelly Loeffler, because the polls, I think the polls in the end, they would favor the Democrats, as they typically always do. But the betting odds, they're not, any sort of good method to predict elections, but betting odds, they're how other people feel about these races. And right now, a pretty significant majority of people feel that Raphael Warnock is going to defeat Kelly Loeffler, which is something I did not expect. So the numbers right now, Kelly Loeffler is at 45, Raphael Warnock 57. Really, if you're a Republican in a state of Georgia and people expect you to lose, that really is not the greatest sign for you. And then for Jon Ossoff and David Perdue, Ossoff has increased by a lot. David Perdue so far has gone up, and with this, it goes up and down throughout the day. So the numbers that I'm saying right now might not actually be the actual numbers when you're watching this. So it goes up a little bit, like it did yesterday. But the trend here is that Jon Ossoff is increasing in his chances of victory, while David Perdue is slipping with only 3 days to go. And David Perdue, he is, still in quarantine, so he will not be able to campaign, which I think is probably going to damage him, because he needs enthusiasm. These two Republican candidates, they are boring. I don't see how you could see these two candidates as exciting figures. They are really, really boring. And I think that Jon Ossoff and Raphael Warnock have the excitement behind them. They have the enthusiasm, and they're really not doing that bad. Georgia just flipped blue on the presidential level, and I think that those voters know how important this is, and I think they are going to turn out for Jon Ossoff and Raphael Warnock. And you saw David Perdue, the incumbent senator from a Republican state. Georgia is still, it's been a Republican state for decades, and the state of Georgia, for their Republican incumbent, he could not even get 50% of the vote in that state. I think that shows that many people are opposed to David Perdue. He did do better than Trump, but really he did not do that well for a Republican. I definitely expected him to do a little bit better. I expected him to actually win this race outright because I think that he probably would have done a little bit better than Donald Trump, but really he did not. He won less votes than Joe Biden. So, these two candidates, they are not very popular. But really, I think that the only thing going for them is that they're not Democrats, and a lot of conservatives in the state, they may not like them, but they do not want to vote for a Democrat. So that's really the only thing right now that's going for these two Republican senators. And you have the net change in seats by party, the betting odds. So basically, everything that is not Democrats plus 1, 2, or 3 is absolutely impossible because, there's only 2 seats left, and Democrats have already gained 1 seat. They won Arizona and Colorado, which were flips, but they lost Alabama. So right now, it's net change of plus 1 for the Democratic Party no matter what. And there's a 39% chance of that occurring, according to the betting odds, which is basically Democrats lose both seats in Georgia. Plus 2 is Democrats win 1 seat and lose 1 seat in the state of Georgia, but Democrats winning both seats right now is the highest chance of occurring at 41 cents per share, overtaking Democrats plus 1 from yesterday. So right now, according to these numbers, there is a higher chance of Democrats winning both seats than there is of them winning 0 seats, but really it's all very close, and this is betting odds. So right now, most people, they are swaying in favor of the Democratic Party. That's the trend that we've been seeing. Many people are confident in David Perdue, in Jon Ossoff, and Raphael Warnock, and really, I don't see Democrats plus 2 as something that's going to occur. I don't think that there is, the electoral, the vote share is going to split. It's going to be that different for both candidates. I don't see one Democrat winning from Georgia and one Republican winning from Georgia. That can definitely occur, but I don't think that situation is very likely and one that we're going to see ourselves in. Because just so many voters, I really don't think that the amount of voters who are going to vote for David Perdue, but not Kelly Loeffler, is going to be so large that it actually makes Loeffler lose, but Perdue win. So I think that either Republicans win both or Democrats win both at this moment in time. And the early voting right now, it could go down a little bit, but that's just with some adjustments. So it's at 3.002 million. I think that's going to be the finalized number. I changed by a couple of votes, but really that's the final number. And then for the regular election, 4.013. Now, to put this into context, for a runoff race, this is extremely high turnout. Runoff turnout, this is at 3 million, so this number right there should be 3 million. This is a little bit older. This was from a couple days ago, and so all this is a little bit lower. But basically, these numbers down here, they are the final numbers before early voting. You see 2.1 million for the 2008 Senate seat, but really this was a race where Democrats already won 58 or I believe almost 60 seats in the Senate. That's a super majority, and this was with the election of Barack Obama, of course. So Democrats didn't see this as too important, so they didn't come out for the Democrat there in the 2008 Senate race and these other races. You see pretty low turnout for these runoffs. We're already at 3 million. That is going to break the record for a runoff race. And we are already at, I believe, around 60% of the turnout. You have 3 million votes and 4.9, almost 5 million people voted in the general election for the 2020 Senate races here. So you're at around 60% turnout of the November election. In 2008, of course, there was less votes there, 3.9 million, so that's at 57. So it already eclipsed that. So the turnout for this race really is very, very high. And what I think is the most beneficial for the Democratic Party is if you were to take a look at the race and ethnicity, you see that there are some trends that favor the Democrats. So what you see down here is, if you were to take a look at the distribution, white 55.8. This is the election that's going to occur. These are the early votes for the runoff, and these are the numbers for the regular election. 56.5 of the white vote drops down to 55.8. Now, this isn't, an estimation. These are the actual numbers. These are the actual early voting numbers for race and ethnicity. The black vote, 30.8% right now. It it was 27.7%. That is the thing right there. That I think is going to benefit the Democratic Party the most. 1.1 million votes. You had 923,000, which is pretty close. The turnout rate is at 39.8%, 27.7%. I mean, that is, so much higher. I mean, 39.8% turnout rate compared to 27.7, 56.5 for the white vote, 41.1%. Or no, actually, no. Okay, that doesn't turn out. Okay, ignore everything I just said. Okay, I don't know. I guess I can't read, but you see the white vote, 56.5. It has gone down. The Hispanic vote has also gone down a little bit from 2.6%. Asian American vote went down a little bit as well. So really not too many changes. I mean, these account for very small percentages of the electorate. They can make a difference, but they probably vote. It's really just a black vote, and that is what Democrats are betting on, and that is what they're getting. They are getting high black turnout, which is what they need. Those who did not vote in the 2020 general election, 115,000, they could sway this election. That I think is very beneficial for the Democrats. They want higher turnout. And those voters, many of them, as they've been saying for a long time, voters who just turned 18 after November 3rd and registered before the deadline, and they have voted, and they are going to vote overwhelmingly for the Democratic Party. So, that is why these numbers favor the Democrats. And around 900,000 people turned out on Election Day for these Georgia races for the Senate, because the total was 4.9 million, and 4.013 million voted early in the general election. Now, for these runoffs, it's currently at 3 million. I expect around 3.5 to 3.7. It might even be 3.3 million, which would make my prediction correct. But it's a runoff race, and the in-person voting, I don't think is going to be anywhere as high as it was for the general election, because it still is a runoff. And I think that less people are going to, go on that specific day. A lot of them are probably just going to vote a little bit earlier. So if the turnout really isn't that high, I don't see Republicans, maintaining their seats here. And I mean, turnout has been amazing for these races. You see the exit polls, you see 28% black right now. It is at the black vote. It is currently at 30.8%. So that 2%, I mean, that can give Jon Ossoff the election. So really, these numbers, they're so close. I mean, there's not a doubt about that. David Perdue can still win. But I think that right now, these numbers benefit the Democrats, and Republicans should not be confident that they will hold on to these two seats, nor should Democrats be confident that they will be able to flip these two seats. So basically, we took a look at the betting odds, as well as Trump's approval in each state, and his approval rating in Georgia is not very high. This race right now, I think that Loeffler is currently in a state where she is probably going to lose. I would say that Raphael Warnock has a little bit of a higher chance. If I had to bet, I would bet on Warnock, but I would not bet on these races, because they are still toss-ups. They are still very, very close, but I think that Warnock has the edge over Loeffler, and the other races as of right now is a pure toss-up. I'll be doing a lot more analysis on the early vote, as I did a couple days ago, very specifically for each and every county. That's going to take a long time to do, but I'll be doing that. It'll probably come out either tomorrow or the day after that, but yeah, I'll make sure to update that. And yeah, I think that'll give us a better picture of who's leading in this election. It just tests the turnout for each county. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure you join my Discord server if you have not. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe to my channel if you have not. Comment down below who you think is going to win the race at this point in time and why. And so yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video.